Hi everyone, my name is Sally and today I will be talking about the role of Mexican art in the Mexican Revolution. The styles I will be focusing on are abstract art and Mexican muralism. So what is abstract art? In its modern day context, abstract art was first popularized towards the end of the 19th century when artists felt a need to create something that represented the fundamental changes taking place in technology, science, and philosophy. Artwork was usually required to be true to itself with realistic perspective, shading, and other techniques to create the most historically accurate and lifelike scene. But towards the later half of the 20th century, abstract art would develop through digital art, geometric abstraction, minimalism, abstract expressionism, and more. But to be more specific, we will be talking about abstract expressionism, which was guided by more of emotion. Abstract expressionism was a desire for artists to make art that, although inherently abstract, could also be expressive and emotional. These type of artists believed that art should come from the unconscious mind and therefore required creating work without conscious thought. Under this type of art, there are two types of art: is action painting and color field painting. Action painters would attack their canvas with expressive brushstrokes, and color field painters would choose to fill their canvases with large areas of a color. For example, we have this one, which was more blocked colors. We have this one. You can kind of tell what it is, but it has, more shapes, more colors everywhere, but you can tell for the most part what it is. And then you have more of an action painter, which is kind of all over the place, but you can still kind of tell what it is. Now, as we all know, a popular style amongst the Mexican community was Mexican muralism, which grew in popularity in the wake of the Mexican Revolution and was usually funded by the government. In a time of civil unrest, muralism was used in order to unite a divided population, in order to create an official history of Mexico in which its citizens would find themselves, and it needed a medium that could propagate this to a largely poor and illiterate community. As you can see in these paintings, it's a little bit of, who they are and where they came from. So the origins and its influence, murals date back to Mesoamerica. Mexico has had a long tradition of mural painting. Its legacy dates back to the pre-Hispanic period with ancient civilization called the Olmecs. Mural painting became one of the most popular and most dominant forms of art in Mexican culture, a country tool for means of expression. On the flip side, though, Mexican muralism also influenced the rise of American social realism during the Great Depression as artists began to sympathize and express the ugly realities of the working class and the gap between the rich and the poor. Mexican muralism would also serve as an inspiration for the Chicano art movement. Role did abstract art and muralism play? Beginning in 1910, the Mexican Revolution inspired artists to look inward in search of a specifically Mexican artistic language in order to transcend the realm of art and give a national identity to this population undergoing transition with an almost 90% illiteracy rate. Without a philosophy or ideology on which to stand, the ongoing contention resembled more of a labor uprising than a political movement. To continue the aesthetic appeal would help Mexicans adapt to the new regimen by affecting an overall sense of pride and cultural beauty within the community as a whole. The themes glorified the Mexican Revolution and recalled Mexico's early pre-Hispanic heritage and promoted the ideals of the new government. Mexican muralism was characterized by the artist's freedom of expression to themselves. The government increasingly sought to control the subjects depicted in the murals they commissioned. The art then became a staple that would go against the government and bring a new movement that aided the Mexican identity. This I will be talking about is Manuel Felguérez. He was a Mexican abstract artist that was part of the Generación de la Ruptura, which was a group that favored expressionism and protected artists from Mexico's repressive government. He believed that a sense of order coexisted with the refined rebelliousness which spoke loudly during a time of civil unrest. He was said to be the most intellectual painter of his generation. He branched into synthetic art, urbanism, computing, and did mathematical models, which he then applied to visual arts. His style and imagery was closely tied to the various movements of Europe, such as incorporating geometric constructivism and informalism and abstract expressionism. His style included basic geometric figures such as circles, triangles, rectangles, and squares in combinations to form his own language. He also believed constant evolution distinguishes the artist from the artisan who repeats style and forms. His style defied the typical muralism that reigned during the time, but influenced an open mind when it came to art. Time when the people needed to remember where they came from, this abstract collection is a reminder of that. In the collection origin point, the shapes and colors mimic emotions brought on by thinking of that home and uniting those who came from it, but also allowing for those viewing it to have their own opinion. All the shapes and colors mimic everything he thought of Mexico and how he saw it, and he gave the freedom to those who came from it to have their own thoughts and feelings when looking at it and remembering about their home. His style is a style that defied what it was once inspired by. Was the first non-figurative painter in Mexico who ventured into muralism, and this right here is one of the prime examples at Telón de la Paz. It was 12 by 24 foot and made completely of metal sculpture, which he then purposely let age into a beautiful, rustic piece. It paid homage to the city of Mexico, and it was important during a crisis of the Mexican identity and reminded those who came from it. Next artist I'll be talking about is Gunther Garrison. He used geometric abstraction combined with the restricted space of cubism with the deep vistas of late surrealism. His style is characterized by rich jewel-like glazes of colors, sharp-edged architectural forms, and suggestion of subterranean space, erotic and psychological. In addition to cubism and surrealism, he referenced the varied landscapes of Mexico. He is Mexico's most significant 20th century abstractionist. He called his paintings landscapes of the spirit to emphasize that they were expressions of the forces inherited in his homeland's terrain, as well as the spiritual value he held for the varied topographies of Mexico and its pre-Columbian history. Their paintings, called Red and Blue, was a reminder of his home. The colors represented emotions tied to Mexico and the different topographies and landscapes of Mexico. He once said a piece of cloth and a little earth combined with enamel and oil would transcend into a powerful expression of emotion. And again, during the time of civil unrest, abstract art played a role in uniting and giving people the freedom of thought. These artists believed that in order to make truly radical art, artists must shed old practices and pioneer completely new techniques.